best unkept secret in Guernsey is it is going to be astronomically expensive. So developing Leales Yard for habitation reasons or purposes is going to be horrendously expensive.
Welcome to the Bailiwick Express podcast. My name is Matthew Leach. I'll be joined each week by a guest for a series of podcasts. Each will shine a light on topics from across the bailiwick. The format will change week to week. We'll have debates, reviews, hot seat interviews and special guests. So stick with us as we offer some insight on some of the most important issues we in the bailiwick face. Independent shop owners on the bridge remain unconvinced that Leales Yard will be developed any time soon, arguing that the co-op's hold on the land could be stopping the area being rejuvenated at all. The 12-acre site has been left derelict for more than a decade after the co-op bought the site with intentions to redevelop not only the land but the bridge itself into a more pedestrian-friendly public centre. Express asked several shop owners on the bridge what they think of the situation, starting with the owner of Shoestring, Dave Purchard.
Yes, I want it to be developed because I've seen it deteriorate so much over the years. I've been on the bridge now for more than 25 years, and when I had my first rent review, even then there was talk of having a supermarket on Leales Yard, and I was wondering about my future and had various clauses put into my new leases because of it. And of course, over the years, various things have happened, but nothing has happened with Leales Yard. But the co-op at the time had a very successful supermarket in Knock Road. It was an ideal location for them, but there was nothing much else in the area, and so it was very successful. But I think other people realised that there was an opportunity there for them, hence Alliance dramatically increased the range of products that they sold to eventually include Tesco. And then M&S decided there was an opportunity for them as well. And they've now got probably their most successful store at Leale. So obviously they've drawn a lot of business away from the bridge area because the co-op has spent such a long time trying to get this thing off the ground. And the situation, I know, has changed for them over the years. At one time, it seemed to be the big thing to have big supermarkets, and it seems that now their idea is not to have big supermarkets. So I don't quite know what their current thinking is, but clearly no investment's gone into the main strip of the bridge in all that time. I know the co-op own a few properties there themselves, and of course some have been let out to charity shops, which is lovely for charity shops, but doesn't really enhance the area.
Because your interesting point there, because I think what I'm coming to grips with here is that the very fact that the co-op has owned this site for so long and has not developed it has kind of stopped any development at the bridge at all. That is absolutely true. What do you hope to happen? What do you have any idea? Is there any feeling about among the community around that area?
Well, I do want to still see a supermarket built in the centre there, but I primarily want to see the area used for low-cost housing, whether that be people buying or renting. And then, obviously, like I was saying before, the bridge area has lost a lot of business to the supermarkets of M&S and Alliance. But if we have a number of houses and apartments there, then we'll be able to claw some of that business back. And the co-op, or whoever the developer would be, should be able to have a pretty successful supermarket there. I was initially worried, back 25 years ago, I suppose, that the focus of the business would be taken away from the main strip where my shop is, and it might end up within the complex itself, Leales Yard itself. But I don't think that's ever really likely to happen actually now, and I think that parade of shops will always be successful. We've got to a situation a few years ago where house prices were going down, and that may have been one of the reasons why they felt they couldn't develop it, because they dropped so much. But now, of course, they've risen again, but Kenilworth is going to have a detrimental effect, I would think, on house prices if they were to develop Leales Yard, because I imagine Kenilworth would get completed first.
Do you know why it has taken the Co-op so long and why they haven't developed it yet?
I understand that they were always looking for a partner to develop the site with, and they could never find that partner. If the States could have been that partner, perhaps they could have got on with it. But they consider themselves as retailers rather than developers themselves. I know there's been issues over the state of the contamination of the area, and also worries over global warming and the height of the tide. And if that were to coincide with a spring tide and an easterly wind, it could cause flooding there. I know that's been an issue.
There seems to be a feeling that something is happening, or there is some decision that's been made somewhere. Do you get that feeling? Is there like an undercurrent or an idea that there has been?
So I've got a bit sceptical about it, I'm afraid now. I mean, I'm 73 now. I don't think anything's going to happen in my time as a retailer down there. I would like to think that Shoestring might be going for a number of years yet, but it may not necessarily be with me operating there. So I can't get as excited as I might have at one time. No. Okay. So no, I'm a bit pessimistic about the whole thing, I'm afraid now.
Some are unconvinced that the bridge needs any development at all, like Daphne Breward from the Bridge Candy Shop. She sent us a statement saying she finds it amusing when she hears the bridge needs rejuvenating. She said she isn't particularly bothered by any development of Leales Yard as long as it doesn't see the removal of any parking. This is something Tony Hanson of Hanson's agrees with, who talked to us before the rush at lunchtime.
Myself and quite a few shop owners on the bridge have made it very clear that we're all for the Leale Yard development, provided that the bridge doesn't lose any of our parkings, which are basically the lifeblood of the bridge. If you have a look at the different types of outlets, retail outlets there, they predominantly are high sort of volume, low value, low cost. So you really do need a very, very good footfall and stream of people coming and going. So if we were to lose our parking spaces, that could very well be, the death nail in the coffin. Whilst if we could retain our parking and get more parking, I feel more retail space would be a bonus. I would really hate the main seafront promenade to be messed with in any way, to be honest with you. There was an argument saying, well, look how congested and busy it is. My side of the argument is, well, if it is very busy, it means something's working, doesn't it? You want to see a busy hub, don't you? You don't want to see a quiet hub. So obviously it's working if it's very busy. The problem with Leales Yard, it's sort of the best unkept secret in Guernsey is going to be astronomically expensive because of the fact that it's all reclaimed land, with regard to drainage and movement and all that. So developing Leales Yard for habitation reasons or purposes is going to be horrendously expensive. If that doesn't come to fruition, I'd like to see Leales Yard be handed back to Industria again, as it was in the early years, in the beginning, where you'd have sort of your tradesmen, your storage units, your artisans. I'd like to see, if anything, it go back to that. It's a good piece of land. It's centrally located. It's got a good route system. So if ultimately it's just too costly for housing developments and for retail, I'd say the next best thing would probably be returning it back to how it was previously, and sort of light industry and that sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, this has been, it was bought by the Co-op more than 10, 12 years ago now. Obviously hasn't been developed for a long time. I mean, do you think do you have any feeling about is anything coming up next?
Well, I've been in Guernsey, 18 years now. I've been on the bridge about 11. And the first year I opened up on the bridge, there was talks of Leales Yard, and even before that. I think what's happened is, whilst the powers that be have wanted to move forward, I think the issue is that the more they dig and delve into this, the more they realize how astronomically expensive this project actually is going to be. And I also think that the more they delve into this, I think they realize that it would not be able to be done by one party. There'd have to be quite a few different parties involved, specialists and the likes thereof, certainly a lot of off-island specialists involved to bring this thing together. There's also the argument that it's privately owned. Well, no, when I say privately owned, it's not state-owned. So why should the states, contribute?
Yeah.
There is an argument there on both sides of the fence. The thing is, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. So if the states do sort of get involved in some sort of, in a project that's privately owned, there could be an argument then why don't they invest in other sort of aspects of the private market as well. The thing with Leales Yard, there is so many conflicting interests and so many conflicting opinions, and so many sort of bombshells that keep dropping that personally I'm not too confident that things are going to be happening anytime soon.
I was going to ask, do you think that the co-op has held on to this site for a long time? It appears to me that this is kind of restricted development on the bridge.
It's certainly been left alone for a long time, hasn't it? And whilst there are quite a few shops which are vacant on the bridge, one needs to ask the question why they are vacant. A lot of them are owned by the co-op, and the co-op are not entertaining long-term leases. I think also the fact that, again, I'll drum on it, the limited parking on the bridge. I think that is what is restricting the bridge more than the Leales Yard project. We need to remember Guernsey is only so big, and we need to be careful as to the scope of these developments, because very often developers, don't really care about what happens tomorrow. They just want to sort of grab the buck and run. What I'd like to say, yes, a certain amount of development, in my opinion, should have taken place, but to the scope of what some have suggested, I feel a bit sort of negative against. I don't think that it needs to be developed to some point that some have suggested, but it certainly is a shame to see, a piece of land like that in such a centralized, ideal location be disused or not used and just sort of left to go to rack and ruin and basically, fester sort of vermin and just basically an eyesore. So, yeah, again, if I could go back to the old one and say, if anything, let sort of light industry take over and you have sort of like industrial park or something like that.
The States of Guernsey has remained relatively quiet on the situation, despite P&R's government work plan including an appraisal of government involvement in Leales Yard. Back in 2019, the co-op approached the States for a multi-million-pound subsidy to get the ball rolling, but this was rebuffed, and Martin Search, the owner of Ray & Scott, thinks the entire area should simply be sold on if the co-op can't develop it.
I feel that the co-op are not the people to develop it and never have been. I think their intentions were good. Certainly their intentions were good right from the start. I was at the meetings right at the beginning at the Coattails with Mr. Smith, who was the managing director in those days. This has gone 15 years plus ago, about it. And their intentions were good, although they did want to steal business from the bridge and put it into their, obviously, retail sector. The problem with the delay has been nothing has been done on the bridge for the last 30 years, because prior to the co-op, nothing happened. The only thing we had was a new marina, and I think it's put a big stall on everything, from lighting to road design to absolutely everything, and it's a great shame because the bridge is a thriving retail area.
Now, do you understand why the co-op has taken so long?
I think it's cost of developing the site for what they wanted. It's obviously a site that's crying out to be developed. It will enhance this area no end. If you look at the shopping area, it's 99 or 98% full. So it's a very successful area anyway, even in the state that it's in. So anything that's done has got to enhance it, providing the car parking is not removed from the front of the shops. Because as I've said in previous years, what are you going to do with all these empty shops if you do remove the parking? And I've spoken to people in planning about this, and it's a very important issue. The bridge should be treated like the Crown Pier, the Albert Pier. It is a parking area, and it can be enhanced, but sympathetically allowing cars still to park in the area if the Leales Yard is developed.
And so the original plans, the pictures are all quite wonderful of these pedestrianised areas and stuff like that. I mean, do you think...
Absolute nonsense. Would never work, because the bridge is one of the coldest areas in the island. It really gets the winds from pretty much everywhere, and that would work in July and August, but the rest of the year it would just be desolate and empty. So that isn't. It's a dream. It's certainly a dream, but all you'd end up with a lot of empty shops, like you've got in England when they've done the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, when they do out of town shopping in the UK, what they do is decimate the old town. It just becomes run down with empty shops, and this would be awful. This would be awful, because we have a very, very good, thriving shopping area, and it's the second largest town in Guernsey, and it works extremely well.
Do you think the purchase of Kenilworth Vinery and these other developments around that particular area of the island have kind of taken the oomph away from pushing forward with Leales Yard in a way?
My personal feeling is it could be a very, very astute move for the States of Guernsey, because from what I believe, the Co-op may have wanted the States of Guernsey to put money into the Leales Yard. They clearly don't want to, and we haven't got the money to put into Leales Yard. This is a private development, and this is why I feel that the Co-op possibly should sell the yard to someone that actually could develop it, because they're not developers. But I feel that it's a good move, because it will get developed. Kenilworth Vinery is probably slightly smaller from what I believe, and is ideal for housing. And so is Leales Yard, with a mixture, and it will be mixed development when it happens, but let's just hope it happens fairly soon.
And so it's a shame it's been so long, really. I mean, do you think it's restricted any further development on the bridge to have the Co-op own this part?
Totally. I mean, I've got I've had dreams about developing North Side, developing everything, and I mean, I think nothing's happened, as I said earlier, for many, many years. And it's purely because of Leales Yard, because they need to know where they're going with Leales Yard before they do anything. Because we've got sea defences to consider. We've got all sorts of areas, and obviously that was flood. Basically, it was below sea level, and it was reclaimed land. So it'd be very difficult to develop it. And obviously, sea defences need to be put in to protect that area if it is developed. I'd love to see it come to fruition in my lifetime, and while I'm working on the bridge. I've done 47 years, and it'd be fantastic to leave on a high when something is being developed for the good of the bridge.
So the stalemate continues, and the communities surrounding the bridge continue to wonder about the future while the land goes to waste. And what does the Co-op have to say about all of this? Well, we've contacted them twice this year for comment, and have both times been told that politely they would like to decline. Thank you for listening to the Bailiwick Express podcast. The title track was Shift My Weight by Luno. If you enjoyed it, I know it's a pain, but please like and share. It all helps, and remember, you can hit bailiwickexpress.com to stay right up to date with whatever is happening in the Bailiwick. You can find us online, on social, on email, and on internet radio. There'll be more from me, Matthew Leach, and all the Bailiwick Express team next Friday.